We all love a good movie, especially one that's based on a true story. We see these larger-than-life heroes and villains, their incredible journeys, their terrifying reigns of power, all packaged into a 2-hour cinematic experience. And we leave the theater thinking, wow, what a crazy life. But what if I told you that in many cases, the truth wasn't just adapted for the screen? What if it was actively toned down, simplified just so you would actually believe it? What if the real stories were far crazier, far more brutal and far more unbelievable than the fiction they inspired? Today, we're looking at 5 lives so wild, filmmakers had to pump the brakes on reality. From a frontiersman whose real survival story makes an Oscar-winning performance look like a walk in the park, to a pirate whose psychological warfare was more terrifying than any curse. Now, these are the true stories you haven't been told. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 5 is a name you probably recognize, thanks to Leonardo DiCaprio's grueling performance, Hugh Glass. The film, The Revenant, is a harrowing tale. A fur trapper in the 1820s is mauled by a grizzly bear. His companions rob him, murder his son, and leave him for dead. Fueled by revenge, Glass fights his way across a brutal, frozen landscape. It's powerful, it's visceral, and it's almost entirely a Hollywood invention. The reality is so much more profound. First, let's talk about the motive. In the film, Glass's driving force is the murder of his son, Hawk. It's a classic revenge plot, but in reality, there's no historical evidence Hugh Glass ever had a Pawnee wife or son with him on that expedition. That character was created for the movie. So what was the real Hugh Glass's motivation? Pure, stubborn survival. The sheer refusal to die. He wasn't fueled by a revenge plot. He was fueled by an iron will to live. The bear attack in August 1823 was just as horrific as the film shows, if not worse. He surprised a grizzly with her cubs, and she left him with a broken leg, a punctured throat, a ripped scalp, and gashes on his back so deep they exposed his ribs. The expedition leader offered a bonus to 2 men, John Fitzgerald and a young Jim Bridger, to stay with Glass until he died. After a few days, seeing no improvement, Fitzgerald convinced Bridger to leave. They took his rifle, his knife, his most vital survival gear, and left him in what they assumed was his grave. And this is where the real story just gets unbelievable. Glass didn't just get up and start walking. He was shattered, alone, barely armed, and over 200 miles from the nearest settlement. He began to crawl. For 6 weeks, he dragged his broken body across what is now South Dakota. His wounds festered, and to stop gangrene, Glass consciously lay on a rotting log and let maggots eat the dead flesh from his back. He survived on wild berries and roots. In one incredible moment, he scared 2 wolves away from a freshly killed buffalo calf, gorging on the raw meat. He set his own broken leg. He built a raft and floated down the Cheyenne River. This wasn't a montage. This was a minute-by-minute battle against death. So what about that epic revenge? When he finally reached civilization and recovered, he did set out to find the men who betrayed him. He found Jim Bridger first, but instead of a villain, he saw a scared 19-year-old boy who'd been pressured by the older Fitzgerald. So he forgave him. He later tracked down Fitzgerald, who had joined the army. According to one version, killing a soldier was a capital crime, and Glass valued his own life too much to throw it away. Another says he simply forgave him too, content to get his stolen rifle back. The bloody climax never happened. The real story wasn't one of revenge. It was one of survival so absolute that revenge just seemed petty. For our 4th entry, we're leaving the wilderness for the gilded cages of wealth and power. The subject is Charles Foster Kane, the newspaper tycoon from Orson Welles' 1941 masterpiece, Citizen Kane. The film is a thinly veiled portrait of a real person, William Randolph Hearst. And as scathing as the movie was, it barely scratched the surface of the real man's ambition, excess, and influence. The parallels are obvious. Like Kane, Hearst was a media magnate who inherited a mining fortune. He built a newspaper empire that reached 20 million readers a day. He used his papers to push his own political views, famously sensationalizing events in Cuba to help ignite the Spanish-American War. And, of course, there was his own Xanadu. Hearst castle. The film shows Xanadu as a lonely, half-finished monument to a broken man's ego. The reality was somehow even more grandiose. San Simeon, as it was called, wasn't a prison of solitude, but a roaring social hub, the absolute epicenter of Hollywood. Hearst and his longtime mistress, Marion Davies, hosted a constant stream of lavish parties for people like Clark Gable and Cary Grant. The film's portrayal of Kane's second wife as a talentless opera singer is a direct and vicious attack on Marion Davies. But Hollywood had it backward. The tragedy wasn't that Davies was a bad actress, it was that she was a brilliant comedic actress, funny, charming, and naturally gifted. But Hearst, wanting to project an image of high-class prestige, insisted on casting her in stuffy historical dramas that didn't suit her at all. He didn't just promote her career, he smothered it. Where Citizen Kane is a psychological study of one man, the real Hearst was a figure whose actions shaped the nation. His yellow journalism didn't just sell papers, it arguably led a nation to war. His political influence wasn't just a failed run for governor, he was a two-term congressman and a kingmaker in presidential politics. When Hearst learned about Citizen Kane, he didn't just dislike it, he tried to destroy it. He barred any mention of it from his papers. He pressured studio heads to buy the film's negative and burn it. He had his journalists dig into Orson Welles' private life, smearing him as a communist. The campaign was so effective that major theater chains refused to show the movie. At our number 3 spot is a man whose real death was so absurdly cinematic, it makes action movie villains look realistic. Grigory Rasputin. In pop culture, Rasputin is a full-blown sorcerer who summons demons and wields dark magic. The truth is far more bizarre, not because of magic, but because of the sheer unyielding refusal of a mortal man to die. Rasputin was a Siberian peasant and self-proclaimed holy man who managed to get in with the Russian imperial family. His big claim to fame was his seeming ability to heal their son, Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia, whether it was hypnotism, placebo, or just a calming influence. Rasputin was the only one who could stop the boy's bleeding episodes, which made him indispensable to the desperate Tsarina Alexandra. The most famous account of the murder comes from Yusupov himself, and while he probably exaggerated to make himself sound good, the core events are just outlandish. On December 30th, Yusupov lured Rasputin to his palace. In the basement, he offered his guest cakes and Madeira wine, all heavily laced with cyanide. Yusupov watched in growing horror as Rasputin devoured the cakes and drained the wine with no apparent effect. Panicked, Yusupov went upstairs, grabbed a revolver, came back down, and shot Rasputin in the chest. He fell to the floor. The conspirators thought the job was done, but Yusupov had a bad feeling and went to check the body. As he leaned over, Rasputin's eyes snapped open. With a roar, the supposedly dead, poisoned, and shot man leaped up and attacked the prince. When his body was found days later, the autopsy confirmed 3 gunshot wounds, with the one to the head being fatal. Even so, the reality is astounding. This wasn't a sorcerer. This was a man who, through incredible resilience and the sheer incompetence of his assassins, survived a dose of cyanide and a gunshot to the chest long enough to nearly escape. We're uncovering some unbelievable truths today, and if you're enjoying finding out how reality is often wilder than fiction, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're only halfway through, and the stories just get crazier from here. Our number 2 pick is a man who's become an icon of misunderstood genius, Nikola Tesla. In movies like The Prestige, Tesla is a real-life wizard, a mysterious scientist creating machines that defy physics. While that captures his mystique, the real Tesla was in a much more epic struggle, not against the laws of physics, but against the titans of industry. The most famous chapter of this was the War of the Currents. On one side was Thomas Edison, championing direct current DC, which was inefficient over long distances. On the other was Tesla and his revolutionary alternating current AC system, which could send power for hundreds of miles. Edison, seeing his empire threatened, launched a vicious smear campaign to convince the public that AC was deadly. He publicly electrocuted stray animals and even a circus elephant named Topsy, all using AC to prove its dangers. He even secretly funded the development of the first electric chair. But Tesla's ambition went far beyond just powering cities. His ultimate dream was the Wardenclyffe Tower, the heart of a world wireless system. Tesla believed he could use the Earth to transmit not just information, but electrical energy itself, wirelessly, to any point on the globe. With an initial investment from the powerful banker J.P. Morgan, Tesla began construction in 1901. But Morgan thought he was funding a wireless telegraph to compete with Marconi. When Tesla revealed his true, much grander and less profitable plan for free energy, Morgan pulled his funding. In his later years, Tesla became more eccentric. He claimed to have a death ray. He obsessed over the number 3, and he spent his final days nearly penniless in a New York hotel, caring for the city's pigeons. The man who designed the electrical grid that powers our world died broke and alone. And finally, at number 1, we have the most infamous pirate in history, Blackbeard. In movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, he's a supernatural villain who practices voodoo. It's fun, but it completely misses the genius of the real man, Edward Teach. The real Blackbeard was far scarier than any sorcerer, not because he had supernatural powers, but because he was a master of psychological warfare. He didn't need magic. He built the image of a demon himself. Blackbeard understood one thing better than anyone. Fear was more valuable than gold. A battle was costly. It risked your ship, your crew, and your supplies. The most profitable piracy was when the other ship surrendered without a fight. So, Edward Teach dedicated himself to becoming a living nightmare. His famous black beard was part of the act. He grew it long and braided it. But the masterstroke was what he did before a battle. He would tuck slow-burning cannon fuses into his hat and under his beard and light them. Imagine you're on a merchant ship. The pirate captain boarding your vessel appears with his face wreathed in smoke and fire, like a demon emerging from hell. His flag, or at least the one history has come to associate with him, was another tool of terror. It showed a skeleton spearing a bleeding heart while holding an hourglass. The message was brutally clear. Your time is up, and death awaits if you resist. But when his performance was tested, the man was even more ferocious than the legend. His end came on November 22nd, 1718, when he was ambushed by the Navy. Blackbeard and his small crew fought with astonishing ferocity. He came face to face with Lieutenant Robert Maynard, and they dueled. Even after having his throat slashed, Blackbeard kept fighting. An examination of his body later showed he had been shot at least 5 times and had suffered over 20 severe sword cuts before he finally fell dead. In a final gruesome act, Maynard decapitated him and hung his head from the bowsprit of his ship as a warning. The Hollywood version gives us a pirate who uses black magic. The real Blackbeard was a man who understood the most powerful magic of all is the terror you can plant in the human mind. He was a showman, a strategist, and a brute, a combination far more terrifying than any curse. From the silent will of Hugh Glass to the theatrical terror of Blackbeard, the truth often gets buried under stories that are easier to swallow. Hollywood simplifies. It adds motives. It invents monsters to explain away the parts of reality that are too complex or just too unbelievable. But the real stories don't need it. The gritty, messy, and awe-inspiring truth of what these people lived through is a story far wilder than fiction. They show us that history itself is the most incredible storyteller of all. So, which historical figure's true story do you think is wilder than any movie? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most fascinating stories. Thanks for watching.